So, the story of the Jurassic Park and Into the Jurassic World franchise is one of the most storied on the big screen, and is one that I'm not overly connected to, but I do enjoy a handful of these movies. Jurassic Park, the original, is one that I seen as a kid and then hadn't revisited until pretty much last week, and it is one that I think is pretty good, although it is definitely aged in some departments. I don't think some of the characters necessarily work very well anymore, and I think the CGI has obviously worn thin. I don't think in that respect it looks particularly great, but I don't hold it against it in that respect. Second film I've never seen, but I know it has a lot of hardcore fans around it. And then the third film was one that I actually have the most amount of memories for, and is probably the one that I have the best memories for. I thought the birdcage scene as a kid was one of the scariest things that I had ever seen, and when I went back and rewatched the first Jurassic Park and had pretty much forgotten the entire film, I was really going for about a good half of that film going, when's the birdcage coming? And then it hit me on the head, and I was like, oh, that's not this film. And I was sorely disappointed because I really wanted to see that game. Now, the Jurassic World franchise had never appealed to me because I just thought it looked generic, even as a kid, even as a teenager. I was like, that does not appeal to me whatsoever. So in the run-up to the most recent entry, Gareth Edwards' Jurassic World Rebirth, I went through and watched all three of the Jurassic World films. I'm not saying that I watched those films and took them all together seriously, but I do think that we should use those films as a barometer for important conversations. If you come away from those films and go, oh, the Gigantosaurus Rex, what a cool name. I've never seen anything like that before, bro. I'm not really sure you should be commenting on Instagram about whether or not the state of Israel should exist or not. That's not me saying that the existence of the Gigantosaurus Rex is necessarily in favor of Israel or against it. But it is me saying that I don't think anyone who's above the age of 15 and thinks that that is a cool name should be commenting on anything more serious than what shapes they're going to draw in the sandlot in the nursery ground. So with that being said, I think those films are top tier studio garbage. However, as the name would suggest it, Gareth Edwards' Jurassic World Rebirth is somewhat of a rebirth of this franchise. And actually, in my opinion, if we tweaked some of the acting, if we got in some better actors, in my opinion, and if we got in a better scriptwriter, I actually think there is something of a workable trilogy or a workable reboot of a franchise going here with Gareth Edwards at the helm. I don't think Gareth Edwards is very good at character work, I don't think he's very good at plot work, and I don't think he's a great writer. But with that being said, he understands big franchises, he understands spectacle, he understands what audiences are coming for, and he understands how to make moments tense. He understands when to make something look beautiful and grand, and he understands when to, minimize it, use the entire screen to focus on one dinosaur and one character, and make this seem as if this is a life and death situation. And in my opinion, that is something that is sorely missed from those first three films, and that those first three films do not understand, which is that every character that is on screen, if they are not a villain, is universally protected. They are not going to be harmed. They won't even get a cut on the wrist in these films. And in this film, I think there is legitimate danger for a lot of these characters. My main issue is that there clearly seems to be some studio oversight here that suggests that certain characters need to be protected in order for, if this film works, we're going to bring them back in a sequel because they will most likely be the popular ones and the leading faces of this franchise. Now, with that being said, if you are willing to overlook that and accept it as that's a blockbuster thing that happens in pretty much every studio film, then what you are left with is a serviceable, enjoyable summer blockbuster that isn't going to surpass F1, 28 Days Later, Sinners, nothing like that. It's not going to get to any of those heights. It is an enjoyable monster flick from a guy who makes monster flicks. I find a lot of the characters in this film either insufferable or just downright bland. But Gareth Edwards is operating at the top of the game, in my opinion, when it comes to showing you something on screen and making it seem believable. In the Jurassic World films, the dinosaurs are nothing more than passengers and background noise. In these films, there are so few dinosaurs ever on screen at one moment. If this dinosaur is on screen, it means something right now. And whether that means spectacle, grandeur, humor, danger, tension, at certain points there are times where you are going, there's a dinosaur on screen, but this dinosaur isn't in any way a danger to our main characters. And that is really enjoyable to me, because I don't think since the original trilogy that these films have been able to capture that childlike innocence and wonder at nature and at creatures that we don't fully understand. The Jurassic World trilogy, the original trilogy, is hell-bent on telling us if humanity does not get out of the way, it will be destroyed. It is a very doom and gloom message from a blockbuster that is actually quite surprising. What this entry actually says is that, no, it doesn't have to be like that. Yes, we should remove ourselves and try to not influence the nature and the creatures around us as much as possible. But on the other hand, we can also look at it and be in awe of what we are witnessing. We don't always have to think this is something to be afraid of and that we need to control or kill or destroy the entire time. And Gareth Edwards understands that at the heart of the Jurassic Park franchise. Kids, children, innocence, wonder, awe, amazement, all of these things are the very heart of this franchise. That ultimately you are trying to teach a child that this thing, this big thing, this dinosaur, is representative of something even bigger that humanity cannot control. And these films are ultimately attempting to imprint on a child, do not try to control it, or else it will destroy you and everyone you love and everything you have worked for. And the Jurassic World films have essentially turned it into, quite literally, and no pun intended, a theme park. It has taken out that sort of thematic message and has, like I said, made it all doom and gloom, but has also made it unbelievable and films that you do not care to watch. They all blend together. I watched all three of those films in about 2 days, and I could not tell you one from the other. Now, with that being said, as much as I have harked on that original World trilogy, I have to say there are some elements to Rebirth that I'm not a fan of. I don't think Scarlett Johansson is very good. I think the writing is very basic. I think that the majority of the character motivations or characters themselves are things that we've seen before. Rupert Friend plays an evil CEO who we have already seen before, and in my opinion is essentially just typecast now as an Orlando Bloom who is fed on hate. He is completely unbelievable and thankfully isn't in this film very much. Scarlett Johansson is quite bad and is clearly attempting to cash in on what she sees as disrespect from Marvel. This film is here as her attempt to cash in and attempt to probably finance some independent films that she wants to write and direct in the future. Mahershala Ali is also here for a payday, and in my opinion is just serviceable. He doesn't add anything, he doesn't detract, he's just fine. In my opinion, Scarlett Johansson outright is bad in a lot of scenes in this film. She comes across as weirdly sarcastic with all of her lines, and it is able to take you out of the moment in this film, and that is kind of annoying to me considering that everyone else is just fine. There is a family in this film that gets shipwrecked onto the Jurassic World island, and even all of the actors of that family I don't think are bad at all. I just think they're there, and I actually thought their storyline was quite touching, not in necessarily like a oh, this family is coming together sort of thing. But there is an undercurrent of a story here where Universal has clearly said, we need our Lilo and Stitch moment, so you need to find a way to do that. And how they do that is by introducing a small dinosaur to this child and essentially have this moment of saying, yes, humanity may no longer be interested in dinosaurs, but if we introduce this on a very small level, we can actually still make kids very interested in this. And I think that's very contemporary to the modern world, that if it isn't in our phone, if it isn't in our computer, if it isn't in our PlayStation, we don't care. And this, in my opinion, works very well. And for a director, as I say, that doesn't do wholesome or heartwarming very well, I was actually quite surprised by that. And I wasn't at all annoyed, really, that clearly this was a studio note that we need this in there. It just works, in my opinion, and that is kind of this film writ large, that I just think the film kind of works, and that is kind of encapsulated in Jonathan Bailey, who I have to say I wasn't really familiar with before this, but he kind of works in the sense that his motivations to go to this island is purely that he is a scientist and that he wants to see dinosaurs. And this is at the heart of the Jurassic Park franchise, is that we as humans want to see dinosaurs. We want to see the dodo because it is extinct. And we have that wonder and amazement when we do see them. And if we are able to remove the greed encapsulated by evil Orlando Bloom, then we can touch on something that is very heartwarming and is very human, in my opinion. And I have to say that I think this is easily the best film since Jurassic Park 3, if not Jurassic Park 2, if not Jurassic Park 1. But I would have to go back and watch number 2 and number 3 again, but it's literally been a decade and a half probably since I've seen those films, so I can't really comment. There is a very good film here. It's bogged down by basic writing and basic characters. It is bogged down by maybe a bit too lengthy of a runtime, although I probably would go back to see this film again. It's something that I'm not going to sit here and say I wouldn't hate if I just happened to go and see this film again. It's one that is entirely serviceable. My only worry about it being serviceable is we've got a pretty stacked summer in terms of blockbusters, or at least potential blockbusters. So I would worry for this film in terms of, is this really going to hit? Does this have enough to hit? And that's not what I'm really sure about. But for the time being, I am very happy for Gareth Edwards that he seems to have another film in the bag where he just gets what kind of time it is when it comes to spectacle and franchises. And listen, the creator was not well supported and not well marketed, in my opinion, pretty much at all. That film is still enjoyable. It still has a lot going on that I really enjoy. And I just want Gareth Edwards to be given 100, 200 million, whatever he needs, and then told, we will back the shit out of your movie. When you do that, you get, at the very least, enjoyable, good films. And that's what this is. And I have enjoyment out of this. It's basic. Some of the characters are annoying. It's all things we've seen before. But it is all things we have seen before that hasn't been done very well for about 20, 25 years now. And these films are going to continue, probably. So I think we have to find some amount of enjoyment and serviceability in these films, because I would prefer to watch this than watch any of the Chris Pratt films again. And actually, that probably goes for pretty much anything Chris Pratt has ever done, to be honest.